President Trump is denying accusations that he made disparaging remarks about soldiers who were captured or killed in battle.
That some horrible things were said, fake things, fake news, corrupt news, the kind of news that's ruining your profession. And everyone knows it's totally false.
Talking to reporters last night after a campaign rally, Trump called the allegations made-up fake news. According to a story in The Atlantic, Trump canceled a visit to a U.S. cemetery outside Paris in 2018 because he said it was filled with losers. The White House blames the canceled visit on poor weather. It was raining at the time. I want to bring in Michael Fauntroy now. He's a political science professor at Howard University. Good morning, Professor. Good to see you again. So what do you make of President Trump denying making those remarks? Do you believe him?
Well, I'm not surprised by the reporting by The Atlantic. I read the article. I saw an interview this morning with the author of the article. And I would note that the president's fierce denial took place on the tarmac in the dark in a way that suggests to me he understands and his people understand that this is a really serious allegation. And while the people who provided the information have done so in background, that gives the president some wiggle room. I think it's fairly well known that the president has repeatedly sort of undermined and disparaged military service generally, while at the same time trying to present himself as a backer of military families. Now, to your question as to whether or not I believe him, it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt after all of these years of half-truths and in some cases whole lies. So at least at this point, I'm prepared to give the benefit of the doubt to the author and say that what was reported is true.
It's certainly in line with comments the president has made before. We know he has talked about Mr. McCain, John McCain, and his career as a war hero. He has also reportedly made comments about not wanting to have visibly disabled soldiers walk in parades. So if that's the case, why do you think that this is such a serious allegation, as you put it, when we've kind of heard things like this from President Trump in the past? What makes it different this time?
Well, let me also add, Marcia, that he himself sought out and received a deferment during the Vietnam War. So he didn't serve. And I believe that and that fact has in some ways colored his view about military service. It's something to get out of, like jury duty. And so it's a nuisance for him. And as it pertains to why it's so important now at this point, given all that we know that he's said and done over the years, we're 60 days out from the election. And he can't afford to leak any supporters. And as we talked the other day, Wisconsin, for example, is a very closely contested state in 2016. If he offends military families with them thinking that this is true, then that poses a problem for him at the ballot box in 60 days. And so I think that's the really big important point as it pertains to right now. It's the timing, not just the facts that may or may not be in dispute.
Okay, so he has to watch whether or not he loses any supporters. Let's turn to Joe Biden. He was in Kenosha, Wisconsin yesterday. He's getting a lot of praise for his visit there, the tone that he took, the words that he used. Do you think that he gained any support, or was he kind of preaching to the choir, as they say?
Well, there's certainly some preaching to the choir. I will say he went to Wisconsin and painted a very stark contrast between his vision of the country and that of the president's. And as we discussed a couple of days ago, the president's dystopian sort of view of America is very different from what Joe Biden presented. The clip in the lead into this piece from Jacob Blake's sister, I believe, laid out some of the humanity that Joe Biden is showing, that I think for people who are tired and wrung dry by what's been going on in the country, Biden's appearance and his language and his words and his tone, I think could be pretty attractive.
All right, as you point out, we're 2 months away from the election. What would you say at this moment in time is the #1 issue for Americans? Is it the pandemic? Is it crime in big cities, or really any city? What do you think it is right now that is top of mind for people as they're starting to think about how they want to vote in 60 days?
Well, that question is fascinating, because that's if that describes where this election is headed. If it's about crime, then it favors President Trump. If it's about the economy and coronavirus, then it favors Vice President Biden. And so I think at this point, it's the economy. You know, if you don't have a job or you can't pay your rent or you're struggling with tuition and all these other things, the other issues sort of play in the background. And so as we get closer to Election Day, I would encourage everyone to take note of where the economy is going. Evictions are up, foreclosures are up, and that's going to weigh heavily on people on Election Day.
Michael Fauntroy, always great to chat with you, and we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.